I am the only biological child of my father. He is married to his wife, who happens to also be the woman he cheated on my mother with when they were together forever ago. I live in the same state as my mom and her husband and our blended family. I didn't really often speak to my father after he divorced my mom and left the state to marry his now wife. Honestly, his wife is nice to me, and I am cordial with her. But my dad is a former Marine and self-proclaimed logic cur. That's his words, not mine. He says he is a pragmatist and a pessimist because if he's 6, hey, it's not a disappointment but a happy surprise. I can't go into all of my father's manipulation of me as a kid without this being a Tolkien book set of words, so suffice it to say, I am not like him at all. I am creative and fun-loving, enjoy things like theater and painting and whatever. He has told me more than once that my career choice of teaching art is a waste of the skills he taught me. Don't ask me what those skills are. My mom raised me my whole life as a single parent, and when they married for all of a year, he was away for work. And after the divorce, Mom was alone for years before she met my dad, her husband. I can count on my hands the amount of one-on-one time I've had with my father growing up, and one hand is all the times we either ended up at the hospital, once his sugar ran low and he tunnel-visioned while driving and rammed our car into a building, or the police station. He almost got arrested for getting aggressive with some stranger we accidentally bumped into on a walk in his city, and he was let off because the cop was a fellow Marine. Recently, in the past 5 years, he has said he wants to be in my life. He called me a lot, but I worked 50-hour weeks sometimes, and I was just busy. My own mother had barely heard from me, but he took offense. He left me 6 vulgar voicemails, like, "I'm your freaking father, and you don't ignore me." He then left me text messages throughout the week of the same sentiment. He then found my workplace office number and called there, which resulted in me having a very awkward conversation with HR and my then supervisor. When I finally spoke to him, I said, he can't blow up my phone or call my job like that, and that I was busy between work, therapy, physical therapy. I was in an accident, which he didn't even want to discuss, and caring for my sick dog. He basically said the same about him being my father, and I better not dare ignore him again. Fast forward to 3 months ago in April when I came out as bisexual, and he called me to tell me what a disappointment I am and how disgusting it is that I chose to be a fetish for his fellow Marines by being a porn G. That was when I told him I really didn't want to speak to him about my queerness and kept my distance. We are friends on Facebook, and he posted some really hateful memes and the like, and how queer people should be reprogrammed. So I deleted him from Facebook. His wife called me crying that this fighting is stressing her out, and she loves me like her own, and begged me to make up with him, so we had a virtual family game night with her son, my father, and myself. We played a version of Pictionary, and he drew a picture of a stick figure in a straitjacket drooling, and I didn't guess it. The phrase was Happy Pride. I recently decided to get my next degree, and this came up in a FaceTime conversation with him and his wife, and they asked what in, and I told them either child psychology or primary education, as I want to advance in my career. My father sighed heavily and said, "Well, I guess those who can't do teach." It was then that I cried in front of him for the first time since I was a kid. I was proud of myself, so freaking proud, that I managed to put my chaotic life together enough to be on track to get back to school. I got my PTSD in line, made a hard choice in leaving my job for a better paying one, started paying off my debts from my first degree, and finally landed in a place to go back to school. And he couldn't just say, "That's nice, kid," or something nonchalant. I said I was tired and needed to go and hung up the call. His wife texted me an apology and said they are proud of my tenacity and hard work and can't wait to see what I will do with my degree. Last week, my father called and told me he is sick, like really sick, his kidney again. A few years back, he rekindled our relationship because of his kidney failure. He could have not made it, but fortunately his treatments and dialysis helped him until a kidney came. I did get tested and was a match, but I was at risk and couldn't do surgery. Now he's going downhill again. He asked me if I planned to get married at all, and I said, if it happens, it happens, but I am seeing someone right now, and we are currently okay with just dating. He asked if it's a woman, and I said no. He said he wants to be at my wedding and give me away, so I should ask my BF to marry me. I was confused because firstly, he didn't ask if I wanted to marry the man. I would in a heartbeat. My BF is amazing. And secondly, we may never marry. It's just not on the menu for at least a year or so. My father told me that while he was largely absent from my childhood, I'm still his little girl, and he loves me with all his heart. I'm his legacy and dream, and he needs to know the lineage can go on. I then broke to my father that I don't want kids right now and might never want kids. He told me then that I would have kids to make me proud for once. He's my father. I love him. But I just snapped. I asked him how I haven't made him proud before. He listed things here and there, like when I wrecked a car at 25. He wasn't even there, and I told him about this. Or when I chose teaching over being in the military or police force, or at least a lawyer. He then went on about a 10-minute rant about my phase of liking women before I got with my BF. I said that I'm still bi, I love my career, and I love the person I've become, and I frankly no longer concern myself with if I make him proud. I am proud of me. Mom and Dad and my siblings are too. And that's enough for me. I strive to make myself proud, and if that's not enough for him, so be it. He asked if I am really okay with him dying, thinking I am a disappointment, and I said, well, bottom line without fluff? Yeah, it is, because I am happy. His wife called me yesterday, and it was a 2-hour talk. She started off hysterical, asking me why I would break his heart and spirit while he is so sick and facing life-threatening issue again. She called me cruel and said she was incredibly disappointed in me and said I think myself my mother's daughter more than my father's daughter. I was crushed, but said something along the lines of, he doesn't accept me, and if he weren't my father, that'd be enough for me to never speak to him again. I don't want him to be sick, but he is. He doesn't want me to be queer, but I am. The difference is, sicknesses can be treated or even cured. My queerness, not so much. She started sobbing and hung up. Look, I am aware that my father is a hateful jerk, and if you're a hateful jerk, don't bother. I am still gonna be me. But it hurt me so much that there is just nothing he finds good about me. Not a single thing. It hurts. It shouldn't, but it hurts. The nail for me was today, his birthday. I called to say happy birthday, and he told me to save it, and he knows I am celebrating my mom. Her birthday is the day after his, and not him, and this is a pity call because I don't love him. He said he wishes he had more children, so one of them wouldn't be so selfish and would just grant every father's wish to see his daughter married and to give her away before he dies. I've spoken to my dad, stepfather, about what he thinks about me not being married and the like. Neither is his bio daughter, my sister. And he just laughed and said, baby, if you're happy with your life and I die tomorrow, I die happy. Marrying your mother was the best choice I ever made. And I'm happy, but marriage ain't for everyone. Do you? I clung to that all day, but I can't unhear my father crying. He texted me that if I hate him to just say it, so he can face his death knowing the truth, and that saying I don't care about him being proud of me was a low blow to a father and a betrayal. I don't want him to face his mortality, all this shitty medical treatment he needs to go through, the financial burden, the mental burden, the everything about this situation that sucks for him, and think I hate him. I do not hate my father. I've been through my therapy and let go of all that anger. Now all that's left is sadness and guilt. I don't regret holding my ground, but he seems really hurt by what I said. I am too emotional to know for sure. Am I the idiot? I am sitting and waiting for my friends to meet me for karaoke night to ask them, but I figured I ask here too. Now for the update. Sorry if this doesn't make sense. I have been crying and drinking, and it is what it is. I felt so bad that I called my father, Bio, and just cut him off before he started small talking. I told him that my stepfather, my dad, is my dad. He was there when I learned how to ride a bike. He was there when Trevor from 6th grade broke my little emo heart. He was the guy who came and got me when I got too drunk at a concert and needed a sober ride, even though I was an hour out. That's my dad. If I ever got married and did the traditional give away the bride, no shade to folk who want that, I don't. It would be my dad. The same dad that hugged me as I cried for hours when my grandmother died. Same guy who got tampons at the drugstore when I had a hormonal teenage meltdown. That guy. My father just said, "I understand," and nothing more. When I said my whole piece, he just said, "Are you done?" And I said I was. He hung up without a word. His wife texted me not long after telling me that if he dies, it's my fault because I broke his spirit and the picture of why he would fight for his life. She told me that after our call, he started to drink, heavily, and that this is also my fault. I've been up at my mom and stepfather's since to try to enjoy the weekend with family, but it bothers me. I need to be clear. I don't want my father to die. I do have good memories with him, and no one deserves what he is going through. But I hate this blame game, and I hate them for doing it. I may or may not have even spoiled my mother for her birthday and have been very obnoxious over social media about it, highlighting all she has done for me. I do not want my father to suffer, and I do not want him to have regrets, but he's just not my dad. He's not a parent, and I don't think we will ever get there. That ship has sailed. I just now sent a text, and you can be the judge if I am a horrible daughter or not, but at this point, I don't think I am. Dad, words will never suffice. I love you fiercely. I always will. But as you know, you are my father, but not my dad. Theo is my dad. I do not ascribe to the tradition to give the bride away, but if I did, Theo would give me away. I'm sorry. I know that might hurt, but I value him and all he has done. He didn't need to adopt me as his own, but he did, and my life is great. I love my family, my life, and I am happy when I think about the future. Isn't that what you want? For me to be happy? I ask because it's what I want for you. I don't want to go no contact. I don't want us to ever stop talking for so many reasons. I mean, sometimes you are right. I am like you. I'm left-handed, love jazz, am good at programming, and generally am the level-headed friend. But I am also like Mom, kind-hearted, tenacious, outspoken. You don't own me just due to genetics. If you want to be in my life, I welcome that and you. But it has to be respectful on both ends. I will not tolerate anything else. If this works for you, awesome. But if not, understand that this means that we will never have a true relationship. I love you so much. I truly hope for you that you will be well and never in pain or discomfort. But those are my terms. And I signed it. I saw he saw my text, but I haven't heard back. I feel like even if he responded negatively, I would want a response. This waiting is the worst. So here I am on Reddit, trying to spend time. Lol, what a life. Now for the next update. My father finally responded, but not in a way I expected. I work odd hours, so I saw the second his 2 a.m. response came in. I adjusted some info for privacy. OP, I can't express my disappointment. When I left your mother, I had hoped you would be more discerning, but you are as disrespectful and foolish as your mother. Know this, while I love you, my beautiful daughter, you will be at fault when I finally pass on. If you can live with that, then you are your mother's daughter. I am willing to forgive if you offer an earnest and true apology, but I will not waste what little time I have left vying for the affection of someone who wishes death on me. You have until September to decide on what sort of person you are. I look forward to your decision. Your loving father, his name. I had called a bestie of mine that moment. We live in different countries/time zones and sent screenshots, and after a FaceTime talk, I decided to block my father, his wife, and other folks supportive of him. I didn't bother explaining. I only lasted until 8 a.m. when I showed up to speak to my dad, stepfather, and cried my eyes out into his chest. He didn't know what was happening until I calmed down enough to explain. He was quiet and then said that he never wishes to speak ill of my father, but he doesn't want me to think this is fair and good treatment. He said he won't disrespect my father, but he's not a loving or caring dad to me, and he hopes I don't ever put stock in his words. Dad hugged me, and when Mom got up, we had breakfast together. I hate cutting my father off so quickly and completely, but I just can't deal with him anymore. Maybe later I can reach out someday, but not today. Sorry if that's not what folks wanted, but that's what happened. Now for the next update. I am sober this time, just upset. So my father's stepson reached out to me via Insta. When I get messages on social media, a little window hits the top of my screen with a preview of the first few words, and all I saw was something about my father being in the hospital. So I read it. My father took a fall. I can even remember if I mentioned it, but he is an amputee. He didn't have his prosthetic on, was going to the basement for some reason, and fell and broke his leg. My stepbrother says that father is fine, but is telling everyone who is reaching out to him. OP says she doesn't want to be my daughter, and I've been so depressed. So he threw himself down the stairs. My stepbrother was clear. He doesn't think he threw himself down the stairs and just fell because stepbrother was home when it happened, to look after his mom who has been sick over this whole situation. And she and my father got into a loud fight where she said that my father's choices don't only affect him, and she's sick of his shoot and he should apologize to me. He told me to brace myself because my father is spreading word of how I have abandoned him. Said I hate him and that my stepdad and mother have poisoned me against him for years, and this was their endgame. He then said things about my stepdad that I can't even start to type here because it makes me so angry. But to be clear, if not brief, my father is saying that stepdad is hurtful towards me and my mom, and that's why I am no contact with my father. I've unblocked him on Facebook to find that he is posting public posts about it as well, with the same accusations and sharing articles on how to save a victim of abuse, etc. I now have to talk to my actual parents about this, and I know my mom will be upset. This is all such a mess, and I can't even process this. But my father is right about one thing now. I do hate him. Now for the update. I got a call a few weeks ago from my stepbrother, Mark, 20. Male. We haven't been overly close, but long story short, my father accused him of snitching and punched him in the face. I asked if his mother was there, and he said she was yelling at him too. I ran to my dad, stepfather, and told him, and dad got my stepbrother a ticket. Stepbrother flew in the very next morning. He started to stay with us for a couple days, and mom and dad started to consult a lawyer about it. I don't know all of what is going on with the lawyer, but I was and am more focused on my stepbrother. He was jumpy and scared, and he shrinks around my dad and other men in general, and stays close to mom, my sister, myself. One night, as I was drinking wine in the courtyard, he came out to talk with me, and he shared that my father beat him over nearly everything. If he didn't take out the trash, my father would slap him. He got a bad grade. He would do worse. He cried as he told me about this. I told him that I am glad he told me, but he should tell my mom as well, and maybe she and dad can help. He did the next morning. I went back home for a few days not long after, as I live closer to my work, and I had to be physically in. When I got into work, everything was fine, but then that week, I spotted my stepmother, Mark's mother. When she saw me, she yanked me by my collar and pulled me outside. I found out later that my coworker friend saw this and called the police, but my stepmother Pepper started to slap me around. She was yelling at me that I broke her family and stole her son. She demanded to know where Mark was and called me a worthless little ST. When she started hitting me, my friend and boss came out and yanked her off me, but she punched my friend and pushed my boss into a wall and turned around to kick me as I was now on the ground crying. My boss grabbed her again and he threw her down. She started to scream and cry that I've taken her only reasons to live and she hopes I burn in hell, which she repeated over and over but stayed down. The cops came and the building has cameras, so she was charged and I was taken to the hospital. I had some bruises and I bruised a rib when I went down. My dad was next level rageful. I've never seen him so angry in my whole life. He looked me over and listened to what the nurse told him, and he looked at me again and told me to rest. I asked what will happen, and he just gently pushed me back onto the pillows and told me he would be back. What I later learned is that after my father drove Mark away, he blamed Pepper for him vanishing out from under them. Then he started to hit her. According to Pepper, he's hit her before, but stopped for about 15 years ago, but did hit Mark, but she was afraid of stopping him. After days of renewed abuse and SA from my father, she left to find Mark, and since she paid the phone bill, found him on a location app, and knew due to it being my state that I would know where he was. She claims to have been desperate, and it was the mental and emotional distress that caused her to attack me. While she was gone, She apparently didn't tell my father where she was going or why, and he came home to a semi-empty house and decided to down enough alcohol to numb a moose. He was found blackout drunk, wandering his street, and hospitalized for alcohol poisoning. He is still in hospital now, as since he has a transplanted kidney, he needs to be given intensive care, as he says he is now suicidal because he was abandoned by all of his family. My dad got Mark into therapy, and Mark is now staying with Dad's sister because he's so jumpy and anxious, and she lives in a smaller town which is quieter, and with remote therapy, he can spend time healing and getting help. Mom has gone full scorched earth about my father. She has put together a bunch of documents, my text history, etc. She's suing him. Not sure all about the what, but I think it's emotional distress and defamation. I went back home to my parents because the powers that be at my job have let me go. So now I am without income. My father did try messaging me on social media, some pretty hurtful stuff, but when Mom's lawyer started to go after him, it stopped. I don't know what will happen to Pepper, and I don't care as long as she stays away from me. When she was arrested, she threatened me and said she knew where I lived, and since I destroyed her, she will destroy me. So Dad is sure that's the nail on the coffin, and she will be held and then given jail time. He assures me that is the case, but I can't relax. I can only check the locks and try to distract myself, but I can't sleep. Mom got really worried, and I won't say she forced me into a psychiatrist office, but it wasn't my first choice. I can't bother to talk about that right now. I focus myself on the garden, cooking dinners, and reading on the couch. I started to paint crafts for Halloween and have been making pumpkin everything. I cry most of the time. I loved my job and my life and independence, but now I'm just a skittish, weepy, unemployed mess. I don't like this person, who flinched at the doorbell, who can't be calmed down when startled at a door closing, this pathetic woman who can't function anymore. My hatred of my father knows no bounds now. Mom said she is taking him to task legally, and I said he deserves worse. I am disgusted that I share any DNA with that bastard. I hate every single trait I have that might be his. Anything that isn't my mother looking back at me, I despise about myself. It's just a waiting game now. Wait for court for Pepper. Wait to see if Mark is okay. Wait to see what will happen to my father. Wait to see if I can find a job. Wait until I can no longer afford my rent and get evicted. Just freaking wait. I hate it. Am I the idiot for wanting to give up my parental rights because I never wanted kids? I know this will make me seem bad and all, but above all, I really just need a place to vent. I can't talk about it with my friends or family, nor do I really want to. I'm 27 and I've had a FWB situation with a guy I went to college with. Let's call him Mark. We were both young and not ready for a relationship. Then I got pregnant. I told Mark about it since I wanted to discuss our options. Baby on a living, adoption, or even giving him custody if he wanted to. I never wanted kids, so I'd be fine with any compromise. However, Mark didn't take it well. I remember him insisting we could make it work, especially since we were both in our last-year-old college. He wanted to get married and for us to be a family. I refused. He got his family involved. They called and texted me all the time, even showing up at my part-time job. I know I have no one to blame but myself, but I gave up. I had too many things going on at that time, like the loss of my mother, the stress with the rest of the family, and some stuff going on with my best friend that I won't get into. I remember feeling horrible, but I relented and agreed to keep the baby, although I still refused to get married to Mark. Now we have a 5-year-old daughter together. I'm a mess. I never wanted kids, and although I'm trying, I can't feel any motherly love for her. What makes it worse is that she's genuinely a good kid. She doesn't throw much tantrums, she's always kind, and she doesn't expect much. I feel guilty for hating her. I feel bad all the time. I only get to have her on the weekends, and Mark has her every other day, but that doesn't make me feel better. She talks about wanting to see me and her dad together, but I just can't. I screamed at her once when she drew a little picture of me and Mark holding hands. I apologized after, but I still felt so guilty. I don't know what I'm doing. I just needed to write everything down and get it off my chest. I know I'm a bad mother, I know it, but I don't know how to be better. I don't even know if I want to be better. I just want to give up my parental rights, but even the thought makes me feel even worse. I'm stuck in a hell of my own making. I know I should have fought harder and probably just abort her. Damn me for being weak, I guess. Now, for a few comments. Pretty Princess 014. She's trying to be extra good so you can like her. I used to do that with my mom all the time until one day I made it up in my head that I was done with it. Remove. Yeah, that part of her story made me so sad for her daughter. That poor kid knows her mom doesn't want her and is doing everything she can to appease her. OP doesn't realize, but she already made a little codependent people pleaser. She better leave soon while she has time to forget the time before. Vast B. She'll definitely remember and be really deeply affected by it, unfortunately, but it may be better in the long run for her. She should really discuss it with the ex and give him time to come up with a plan to make it easier on the kid. Libertina. Giving up might make you feel worse, but when your daughter is old enough to realize that her mother doesn't want her, it'll affect the rest of her life. This is your screw up, not hers. Just bail now and live with it. The alternative is far worse. Sorry's 4869. Believe me, she already knows her mom doesn't want her. I speak from experience. My mother didn't want or like me from the get-go, and no matter how much she pretended to be a loving mother, she could never hide it. I felt it from a very young age, way before I could put it into words. She needs to give up her rights ASAP before even more damage is done. Now for the 7-day update. Some things have happened, and I need to write them down. Maybe even get some insight. I'll call my daughter Abby for the sake of this post. I ended up telling Mark about my desire to change the custody arrangement and maybe even removing my parental rights. Many people here agreed that it's the best choice, both for me and for Abby. He didn't take it well and actually texted me about it through the week. He insisted we could work out whatever was bothering me. We agreed a while ago that texting is okay, but calls are for emergencies only. So when he called me on Friday evening and pleaded with me to come see Abby, I agreed. This is what I really need to talk about. I've seen Abby cry before, but this was something else. She had a complete meltdown, screaming and crying once I got there. She just clung to my leg and screamed at me not to leave her. Why did I want to leave her? What did she do wrong? I cried. I was honestly horrified with how badly she reacted. Mark's mom ended up telling Abby that I was planning on leaving her and she's not going to go to my house this weekend. I had to take Abby to my place sooner than expected, and Mark actually spent the night over as well. He said he's too concerned with Abby and with me to leave us alone. I'm completely lost. Even with the way I said that I want to give up my parental rights, I just can't do it now. The image of Abby crying and pleading with me not to leave is just stuck in my mind. I feel hopeless about the entire situation. Currently, I'm laying with Abby on the couch and she's watching TV. She hasn't really left my side since yesterday. I'm used to her pointing at the TV while talking about her favorite characters of whatever cartoon is on. Right now, she's just laying by my side and staying quiet. I can hear Mark moving around in the kitchen. He called in sick to work and said he's staying here for the weekend. I have no idea what to do, and I'm sorry, but I no longer want to leave Abby. That's not an option anymore. Edit. I'd just like to edit and ask for some suggestions about online therapy. What sites do I look for that I'm sure will help me and don't cost too much? Mark is already looking into therapists for Abby in the area, but I'd like to ask for some individual therapy I could attend online. Maybe even suggestions for child therapists online, in case Mark doesn't find anyone. Now for a few comments. Fish read gently, OP, and with sympathy for the conflicting tangle of emotions you find yourself in, I think you need to stop posting about this on Reddit, and I think you need to talk to a professional, ASAP. You might get good advice on Reddit, but you're bound to get shitty advice too, and it is not going to be easy to discern the difference. I don't see what bearing the slings and arrows on a thread like this is really going to do for you, or, more importantly, for Abby. The only advice that you can really be sure of is this. There are professionals who will have much more wisdom and insight into this than your average Redditor. There are professionals who will be able to get you in touch with the emotions and knowledge and info that you need to get in touch with in order to process this situation much more effectively than a Reddit thread ever will. Please get genuine help, OP. Pragmaticus. I'm so glad the top comment on this is get professional help. This woman does not need to be getting any other kind of advice from Reddit. Therapy for her, for the child, and for Mark while we're at it. This whole thing is a mess, and a child doesn't need to be the one to carry that. Abby needs a therapist, as do you, as does Mark. Mark's mom needs to take a long walk off a short pier and butt out. If you want to make this work out, whatever that looks like, you need outside support that benefits all of you with no biases, especially for the kid. Now for a few important comments. Mark's mom made one appearance in the story, and it was to blow up Abby's life. Who knows what else she's been feeding into Abby? This poor baby needs therapy and a safe place to talk. Am I the idiot for raising my parents' rent by 3 and being accused of greed? I bought a small, starter home during the housing market crash, completely by myself. I lived there for the better part of a decade before buying a larger home with my now husband. My parents really wanted to live there because it was small and easy to maintain. They have foreclosed in the past, so no way would they be capable of someone giving them a mortgage. Also, my dad is retired and my mom doesn't work. They wanted to rent from me. For a discounted rent, they paid off the mortgage, let's say $50K, with an over 6-figure inheritance my parents got. A lease was written explaining that it was a prepayment of rent, and their rent would be only the taxes and insurance, and they would pay $350 per month. Basically, only going up when taxes and insurance go up. We signed the lease with all the other typical stuff in it and had it notarized. And that's how it's been for a while now. So to be clear, I'm not making a dime on this house. I recently told them the rent would go up by $3, yes, $3, because of a slight increase in the insurance. My mother lost her shoot, claiming I'm a money-hungry witch. She was going to rip out everything she did, garden and other cosmetic changes, that I owe her, and I can't evict her because it's her house. She's not responsible for the insurance. Lease says otherwise. Insurance hasn't been raised in a decade. Look at lumber prices. I'm trying to make her pay my personal homeowner's insurance. A court will show me that and give her my house. We have a notarized lease. They are listed as tenants. I am the only one on the deed. My father demanded the bills, 0 balls this man has, to see if I'm ripping them off. This house is a commutable distance from Manhattan, so a studio apartment around here is like $1,500. This is a house with a large yard for their dog. I can easily get $2K for this house, even before they moved in. I sent them copies of the taxes and insurance, showing only their address. I'm charging them discounted taxes. You get a discount for paying in full 90 days early. I told them to add and divide by 12 and told my mother to talk to a lawyer so they can slap them straight. I guess my father agreed with me because now she's divorcing my father. Update. First, I want to thank everyone. I was mainly just venting because I was very upset after the exchange and have been dealing with some health issues, which my parents know about, so it's just a range of emotions right now. I keep getting a lot of the same questions. They have lived there for 4 years now. My mom has always been entitled and an alcoholic. Weekends and summers were spent with family. My aunt admitted when I was an adult it was to keep us from being around the alcohol. I mainly did this for my father so he can get a chance to retire after having heart surgery when he worked a physically demanding job for 36 years. They asked to rent the house and pay it off as a prepayment of mortgage, so the only big bill monthly was their health insurance. I had a few others interested in renting my house. I did not ask them for this. They did not co-sign on the mortgage or help with the down payment. Their name is not on my house deed. There have been rent increases in the past due to the taxes and insurance going up, and there was never an issue before. My husband's dad unfortunately passed away without getting to enjoy his retirement, a big reason why my husband told my dad he needs to retire and enjoy life a little, and his inheritance helped pay the down payment on our new house. My mom has a history of putting shoot on me, and $3 is, I guess, my line in the sand. I started paying $200 a week after I graduated high school until I moved out at 20. I worked about 65 hours a week on top of school to do this. And yes, shockingly, they foreclosed when I moved out. I stupidly put her on my phone plan and basically paid her phone for 2 years until the contract ended because she only paid me for 3 months out of those 2 years. She promised money for my wedding and never delivered. They didn't pay for college. They stopped paying for clothes/school expenses when I was 16 because I had a job. I know this is all a red flag parade, but I trusted my dad more than her, I guess, and thought I was doing a good thing. I also want to keep this house because I love it and want to move back one day. It's just too small for us as a young family, or allow my child to live there when they go to college, and want to have fun without parents hanging around or racking up dorm costs. Also, she threatens divorce all the time. I doubt she'll actually go through with it. Now for the 11-day update. I finally have an update for you guys, so all aboard the Disappointment Express. To back up, after the divorce comment, they are not, in fact, getting a divorce. They went and celebrated their anniversary at a casino. I did not speak to them for a week. This past weekend, I tried to speak to my father and get an apology, hoping he would be in a better frame of mind. He wasn't. He doubled down with the BS, saying they didn't realize all the stuff I put in the lease, that my house was uninhabitable when they moved in, it wasn't, that they never would have put work into the house if they were just renters, etc. I asked them to specify, and they said stuff about the garage screen door, the shed roof. My husband replaced 2/3 of it with my dad's help. Dad did the other 1/3, and by God, the hose. The hose leaked. That in no way affects the livability of the house, but in the words of my lawyer, you agreed to live there in its original condition, buddy, so that's on you, just like not reading the lease. My dad went on to just say all these things they were doing for me and not acknowledging a damn thing I was doing for them. At that point, I said some not nice things, including the alcohol-induced dementia everyone mentioned. They wanted to know if they were still going to be able to take my son to the fair. Not a fat chance in hell. I told him I didn't want either one of them around me or my family until they stop being delusional and decide to pay the increase or get out. I then cried when I got off the phone, and my husband was upset with all of this. Cut to today. My mother called me asking what needed to be done to resolve this because not being able to see my son was upsetting to them. I told them they needed to apologize for what they called me and that they were out of line. All right, here is the edited script. Well, you guys, they were scammed. My parents were freaking scammed. That's what this was all about. In my area, homeowners get daily calls, texts, and letters from people wanting to buy their house. It's not new in this market. I have even told them these letters are trash. Well, my parents were getting calls from people saying they were going to be renting the house. They acted like they were representing me. Someone also showed up to their house and was being very pushy about trying to see my mom in the house. This all happened before I mentioned the rent increase. So when my mom heard rent increase, she thought these phone calls and this person was real. Like, I was going to raise the rent to something they couldn't afford and force them out. This was before I told them it was $3. But even after they thought I was throwing them out, I asked them why they didn't ask me, and they said they were scared and had no place to go. I explained to them that's not even how it works. I can't rent a place with tenants. There's a whole legal process, and they should know this. They apologized for how they acted, everything they said, and were embarrassed. They were even more embarrassed that they believed this person and are officially old people that fell for a scammer because they thought they were smarter than that. They hadn't given them money or information yet. I told them they were probably setting them up for it. Scammers will pretend to be renting a house and take people's first, last security. And when the new tenants show up, the house is already occupied and they're screwed out of the money or pretend they need money to let them keep living in the house. I have no idea why they believe/fell for this person or why they never asked me in the first place, since I don't and wouldn't hire a representative for my one house. Their cameras were off when they came, but they're going to file a police report anyway. I told them to call the cops next time, to file for harassment, trespassing, if these people call or show up again. I got my apology from both parents. I explained everything in the lease and why it was legally written that way. I explained to them I can't throw them out on the street on a whim, and as long as they pay the minimum bills to live there, taxes, insurance, I was going to keep my end of the deal. So I guess that's my update. They're not getting evicted for now, but I might have to start monitoring them more closely to see if they fall for other dumb shit. PSA: a lot of us seem to have boomer parents, so I wanted to make you all aware of something. My parents have Medicaid, which in the great old US of A means that if they have a large medical expense, they ain't paying for shoot until all their personal assets are utilized. This means draining bank accounts, taking property, and even requesting back gifts from up to 5 years ago. So for example, your mom falls and breaks a hip and winds up in a rehab. Your mom gave you $20K for a new roof a few years ago. The government will demand that money before they pay for the rehab. They can take their savings and demand property in their name sold to pay for it. They legally cannot touch their car, but that's it. I know this from personal experience with a grandparent, and all of you should too, to help protect your parents. Now for a few important comments. Some comments are relieved it was that simple, but many state the story seems fishy and tell OP to dig deeper. A couple say OP's parents probably tried to sell the house, while others say they just lied to keep face after a lawyer told them they don't have a case. Either way, the consensus seems that the parents don't tell the truth. OP wouldn't put it past them to get scammed or lie, so doesn't know what to believe.